Mary, will you please take the roll call? Here?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Wright? Mr. Wright?
Here.
And Mrs. Harrington?
Here.
All right. I invite everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. And as we do so, I thought it would be fitting to note that today is the 79th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Thank you. All right. Now, before we move into the portion of the meeting where we adopt the agenda tonight, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over quickly to Interim Superintendent, Mr. Lavender.
Thank you, sir. Just wanted to let the public know today for item 6D on the curriculum adoption, we will be doing a presentation tonight on the adoption, but we will not be formally voting to approve the adoption tonight.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lavender. Is there a motion then to adopt the agenda of June 26, 2023 as presented?
I will make that motion.
Second.
All right. We have a motion from Mr. Hunt, second from Mr. Wright. Mary?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
And Mrs. Harrington?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. All right, now minutes from prior meetings. We have the special meeting minutes from May 2nd and the minutes from the regular meeting of that same night. Is there a motion to approve those minutes as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Harrington, second from Mr. Hunt. Mary?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
And Mrs. Harrington?
Yes.
All right, at this time, we will move on to student recognitions.
Yes, sir. If Alexis Ferna would please join me up at the podium. Alexis is going to be a senior this coming year at Casa Grande Union High School. And this last weekend, she won the state championship for skeet shooting, am I correct? Trap shooting.
Every bit as well.
Okay. But, so congratulations, Stir. She actually is number 8 in the world.
Wow.
And recently, in a competition, she got 98 out of 100 in the handicap championship. So next year, they're going to be calling it the Alexis Fernan Handicap Championship. I know Mr. Griffith is working hard to get a team next year from our schools to compete, so Alexis can bring this state championship to our community and our schools as well. I'm also looking forward to it because I challenged her recently to a competition next year. See if I can beat her. And so if she wins, then I told her she could be superintendent for the day. So I'm looking forward to her being superintendent of the day because I got no chance of beating her. But what a great accomplishment for our community to have somebody who is as talented as this young lady. So is there anything, I know you're much more versed in that, you might be able to share a little bit more. I know you told me that she's very disciplined in what she does, and you also told me she beats you as well.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that up. No, she acts as a coach as well, as she does the shooter with my son, who's just starting out skiing, shooting 15s out of 25s, if he was lucky. She coached him through one set, and he shot a 23 out of 25. Just that one training. So, yeah, she is an exceptional young lady for sure. She will bring you home a championship.
She will be leaving shortly, in a couple weeks, to the National Rodeo Championships in Wyoming, correct? And so representing our community as well. So Alexis, why don't you go and say hello to all of our board members? They'd like to congratulate you on all your accomplishments.
Congratulations. Job well done.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Do you have family?
Yeah, well, oh, yeah. We have Jill and Sean, her parents are here as well, so they want to come forward. And our new principal's back there, all smiling, keep picking up this kind of talent as well.
We're actually just your sponsors.
I'll also tell you, Alexis is a very talented student as well, very high GPA. So it's a real honor to have her on our campus. Thank you. 4.5, so.
Nice.
Now moving on to employee recognitions.
Yeah, is Coach Greg here? No. Okay, well, let me recognize him and then the others. Coach Greg, our baseball coach at Vista Grande High School, had another successful season. They qualified for the state playoffs, and he was named the 4A Black Canyon Region Coach of the Year. So we're really excited, and congratulations to Coach Greg. The next two I wanted to recognize, we're going to recognize two individuals. If you think back to August of this year, we've had a lot of change in our district office of personnel. And so some people have really had to step up this year to fill the gaps as personnel left. And I don't think I would be standing here today if it wasn't for two individuals that have really coached and helped me get through these last 3 months. So today we're going to recognize them as both of our employees of the month. The first is Renee Morales. If she could please join me, please. So Renee was hired in July to be our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Then she was asked to be our Director of ESS in October. And then there was a change, and then she was asked to do it again in February. And so she has worked very hard this year, working with us to get our curriculum programs and our assessment and our team supporting curriculum in this district, as well as the ESS challenges we've had this year, working with our staff and making sure our students met graduation requirements or having meetings to determine what was needed for graduation requirements moving forward. And she's been very transparent, and we're in a much better position with ESS as well as curriculum moving forward. She's a passionate educator. She believes strongly that every student can learn, and she brings that enthusiasm. It's just a real honor and pleasure to have her here. So our Renee Morales. We actually have Renee's mother here today. If she could please join me. And her husband, Ken, as well.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
So Renee's husband is an educator in Tucson, PE teacher, head golf coach at Colonial High School, and the head basketball coach at Bushridge High School. They are definitely an educator family. And then Renee, why don't you introduce your mother to all of us?
This is my mother, Norma Montaño, who is also in the education field for years. She retired from special education and ELL, and she made her career to make sure that we could also be in the education field. So I'm really proud to have my mom here.
As a little girl, I was working in an elementary, and her and her sisters would help me before school began, and she stamped the books for me. So that was her beginning in education.
You always have to listen to me. And the other part of our dynamic team is Ms. Jeanette Beecham. If she would please join me up here as well. After a very successful stint at Vista Grande High School as assistant principal, acting principal, Ms. Beecham made the decision last year to come over to our district office to support here as our student data specialist. I think was the name of the title, but there's so many different titles going on. And then when Dr. Strom left us in March, she was the natural choice to become executive director of business operations. At that time, our HR director was out on medical leave and he never came back. And so not only has she been filling in our business operations, she's been filling in as our HR director as well, in making sure that we're getting the best staff we possibly can. We're getting everything there. And so she has worked so hard. And what I really appreciate about Jeanette is I can't push anything over on her. She will challenge me and challenge some of the ideas that I have to ensure that our district is making good, solid decisions financially, legally, and that. And I'm just looking very much forward to the great things that she's going to do for us as well. So Jeanette is our other June employee of the month.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you so much.
Good job, Jeanette.
Nice try.
Thank you.
And then we have one more tonight. We have a new doctor in our district. If Dr. Deanna Addison would please join me. So Dr. Addison, I've known for quite some time because she used to work for me when I was principal at Cactus Middle School, which was many, many moons ago. I think back then she only had a bachelor's degree.
You told me to get a master's.
I did tell you to get a master's. But she, at that time, she ran our alternative school over there, did a phenomenal job and worked hard to get her master's, served in administration, continued to work. And then at Vista Grande has worked in supporting our ED students as well as department chair. She has that firm approach with all of our students to make sure our students know that they are loved by her, but at the same time, there are expectations for success, expectations for their behavior, and she's just doing a great job. And so this year, she'll be Dr. Deanna Addison, and I think at the end of the year, she's going to be looking at some new adventures in life. She's a St. Louis Cardinals fan, so I will always have the World Series we beat you in, and I can't remember what bet I won on that, but she never has forgiven that I won't stop talking about how, I think we swept you, right? But for the rest of my life now, I have to call you Dr. Deanna Addison, so congratulations. Why don't you come up here, please? Deanna also has a daughter, Lucy, who's up at NAU, correct? Deanna?
CAC right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Congratulations.
very much.
You get ready for the St. Louis? All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lavender.
Thank you, sir.
while we are still on employee recognitions, one thing I did want to take a moment to do is that recognize a person who is here tonight. He didn't ask for this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Mr. Ralph Bellick. If anyone was at any of our 2 graduation ceremonies we had a couple of weeks ago, or both of them, all that stuff you saw on the field, the chairs, the stage, and all that stuff was made possible by many long hours put in by Mr. Bellick and his supervisory staff. And so we get to see the end product and everything come together, but none of it would be possible without him and our facilities people. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank him and his people publicly for all the hours and the hard work they put into making those things possible. Thank you. All right, I will move on to superintendent's report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hayes. I do want to also congratulate all 3 of our schools for wonderful graduation celebrations this year. Gus Grande Union, Mr. Mab and his team did a fantastic job organizing the graduation out there. Inova the next day, Mrs. Danzy and Tommy did a great job as well. And then Thursday night, Mr. Danzy and the Vista team. And it was really interesting on Thursday night to watch the graduation there, because Mr. Danzy gave them that speech in the locker room, but it was at the gym before they go out, represent yourself, don't be that guy that embarrasses everybody. And then Mrs. Wilhite stood up and gave the same speech, and I think she had their attention, as there was so much appreciation for Mrs. Wilhite and the great job that she has done at Vista. She's going to be difficult to replace. I know Mr. Danzy has been interviewing and is finding somebody to replace her. And you can replace the person, but you're not going to replace all the things that Colleen did for us. And so it was a great celebration you did that night, Mr. Danzy, for her, and recognizing all of the work that she has done at Vista. So congratulations to you. Ms. Danzy, congratulations to you as well. And then Mr. Mab is down at the ASA conference today, so he wasn't able to make it today. Summer school started yesterday. We'll go from June 5th to June 30th, 4 weeks. The first semester is this week and next week, Monday through Thursday. And then the second semester will be the week of the 19th, Tuesday through Friday, as the students will not be going to school on Monday the 19th. And then the 26th to the 30th. We have 1,100 students currently enrolled in summer school. And so fantastic turnout this year. And for a lot of our students, much needed opportunity to make up grades and get students ready so we can have graduation celebrations next May is well attended, and as many students graduating as we did this year. Also, last Tuesday and Wednesday, we had our administrative retreat with our incoming administrators and those that are returning. We talked at first about the chaos that we've had this year through multiple changes, position changes and things like that. And then we talked about we're going to have to move on from out of the chaos mode into what we call the transformation mode. And that transformation that will take place across the district here at the district office in establishing clear and exact procedures in HR and curriculum and those type of things to ensure that we're providing the best product possible. Our transformation with our new administrative team at Union. And then we also have some new administrators coming on board at Vista, and then our new school PACE that will be opening their doors on July 20th. So next year we're looking for a transformation and moving forward. And at our next board meeting, I'll be spending some time with all of you talking about some of the initiatives that we're going to have moving forward, our goals for the year, and those type of things. But again, I want to congratulate all of our educators for finishing the year strong and excellent graduation ceremonies. I enjoyed all 3 of them and look forward in the distance to participating in 3 more next year. But we got a lot to do between now and then. And that's my report tonight, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lavender. At this time, we will move to the call to the public, and we have one request here for Miss Kimberly Claridge. Did I pronounce that correctly? Thank you. All right. You'll have 3 minutes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm excited to hear all the things your accomplishments over the past 6 months. There's been a lot of upheaval and turmoil in the district. So thank you all for coming together and bringing some normalcy to this. You all talked about a safety plan last board meeting, and I just don't want you to take a sledgehammer approach. It needs to be thoughtful and comprehensive. You did a survey. Is this a survey for metal detectors? The numerator and denominator on this is very small. You've got a large district. I hope that this doesn't make the plans for everything. What I'd like to ask you, and Mr. Lavender, I think you were CC'd on an email I sent to Mr. Wright with some information. But what I'd like to ask you is do your research, articles, discussions with other districts in Arizona. Wisconsin's great, and the gentleman you had here was very knowledgeable, but we need to take the information from our communities and use it to make a comprehensive plan. Credentialed experts, not Facebook warriors, not people that post in chat groups. Make sure that we are listening to the experts. We have great law enforcement in the area, so I just want to make sure that it's a thoughtful, comprehensive plan. Additionally, I want to make sure that we're not slapping a Band-Aid on a larger problem by just addressing physical safety. Our students have been through a lot of challenges in the last few years. They've been socially isolated. I think social workers, counselors, therapists, mental health professionals would be a huge benefit to our community. A lot of these kids don't have the right coping skills. I myself, you can tell I'm very anxious right now. But I think it's important that we develop those coping skills so they can go out to the world and be productive members of society and make a contribution and show that Casa Grande is an amazing place with excellent people and has the ability to do great things in this world. Lastly, I want to address the dress code. I know, Mr. Lavender, you brought that up at the last meeting as well. Let's not take a broad brush to that and focus. Dress codes in many areas focus on the female body. We need to be consistent and make sure we're not shaming or making others self-conscious for others' actions or their own misgivings. As a pastor once said to me, sometimes all it takes is the eyes. So clothing, where it comes from and how it's worn, just be mindful of that so it's not focusing on one gender or one group of people. And lastly, I just want to ask that you have a comprehensive plan for class enrollment and registration next month. Thankfully, my husband endured that 5-hour process last year in the heat. And my now sophomore had 2 math classes at the same time and non-honors classes and classes that she didn't pick for the first 2 weeks. And it took me sitting in the office at Union and demanding a meeting with Mr. Mabb and demanding that the classes be fixed that day for her to change. Now, not everybody's parents able to do that. And so we need to take that same approach and advocate for all the rest of the students who parents aren't able to take a day off work and do that. And I know there are children that are faced with summer school now because they didn't have the parents advocating for them. So I thank you all for your time, and I really appreciate that you volunteer your time, and I look forward to supporting you through this next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the call to the public. We'll now move on to matters reserved for board action. Number 6A, the ABA policy revisions first reading. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second from Mr. Wilkie. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Mary, please call for the question.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes?
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harrington.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, moving on, 6B, safety survey results. This will be a review of the safety survey results and consideration of implementing metal detectors on campuses.
Yes, sir. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Lineberry and Mr. Danzy if they wouldn't mind coming forward. So if you have any specific questions for either one of them, as I kind of go over the survey results and hear their input as well. And so we did have a safety study session the month of May. And through that, the discussion took place about the potential to put metal detectors on our campus. And so what we did is we surveyed students, and we sent the survey to all of the students on our database, staff, and we sent the survey to all staff members, and then parents, we sent the survey to all parents that we had as well. And so when we look at the overall results, we had 364 students respond out of about 4,000, so it was about less than 10%. But the survey was made available to all of our students. Staff, we had 203 out of the 404, so about half of our staff responded. And parents, we had 919. We have 4,000 students. And so we probably had roughly 20 to 25% of our parents respond to the survey. We sent out some reminders to try to generate as many surveys as we possibly can. So as we look at our students, we asked them, are you in favor of the metal detectors? We had strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. And as you can see there, our students were 12% agree, 11% or strongly agree, 11% agree. So about 23% of our students were in support of the metal detectors. Neutral was 17%, and disagree was 18%, and strongly disagree was 42%. So obviously this is not an idea that met with much enthusiasm from our students. Our staff members, we had 87 or 43% strongly agree, 19% or 39 agree, so 62% of our staff members agreed, 16% were neutral, and then we had 9% disagree and 13% strongly disagree, or 22% of our staff disagreed with it. Parents, of the 919 that responded, we had 758, or 83% of our parents say they strongly agreed with placing metal detectors on the campus. We had 69 or 8% agree, so a percentage of 91% agreeing with it. 3% were neutral, and 27 and 34 were either disagree or strongly disagree for 7%. And so looking at the location of the respondents, students, we had 51% come from Vista, 48% Union. Staff, we had 53% come from Union, 37% come from Vista. And parents, we had 74% of the parents came from Union, and 25% came from Vista. So one of the things I did then was look to see if there was a discrepancy in the survey results between the two schools, because I think a lot of you received an email that said, this is a Union problem, please don't employ this strategy at Vista. So I wanted to share the data there. So parent responses, Union parents were 85% strongly agree, Vista parents were 75% strongly agree, and then Union parents were 7% agree, which was 92%, and Vista parents were 9%, which was 84%. So there was an 8% gap from 92 to 84% of parents in support between the two schools. Neutral was about the same, and disagreeing, Union was at 5%, Vista was at 11%. That's the parents. For the staff, a little bit different results here, where Union staff was 54% strongly agree or agree. Vista staff was 62%, or 72%, excuse me. 47% strongly agreed and 19% agreed. And then 13% of Vista staff was opposed to it, and 29% of Union staff was opposed to it. So we saw a higher percent of Vista staff in favor of this strategy than Union staff. And then the student responses, just between the two, there were 187 from Vista, 174 from Union. Both schools had a 12% strongly agree. Union had 11% agree. Vista had 10%. So Vista was at 22%. Union was at 23%. Neutral was pretty close to each other. And so the results were pretty similar between the two schools there. And so that gives you an idea in surveying the community for those that responded, what the support and what the desire of the community was. Our speaker tonight is absolutely right. This has to be a comprehensive plan. It just can't be slapping up metal detectors and thinking that this is going to resolve everything. One of the things that was loud and clear as you read through the comments is that vaping is a huge issue on our campuses. So I've been working with Mr. Bellick, Mr. Griffith, as well as I just went blank on Tina's last name. Tina. About having vapor detectors put into the bathrooms, which seems to be the location. The metal detectors will pick up some vapes depending on the material of the vape, but having vapor detectors. Also at Union, Mr. Ballack and I met yesterday morning out at the campus. There is a gate that is left open between transportation and the facilities there that makes the Union campus unsafe because the gate is left open for vehicles to drive in and out of, and it's becoming a drop-off zone for parents at Union to go behind the school and then have them go through. So if we're going to secure the campus, whether there's metal detectors or not, that gate needs to be closed. And so Mr. Bellick has worked hard to get a quote to have the gate where you have remotes that can open and close the gates so it can be closed unless it is in use to tighten up that. If you remember graduation night, you drove through that gate just before you went to the baseball stadium. Have that gate closed. That way there's only two main entry and exit points to the front of the school and over by the parent and bus zone for the entering the school there, and closing that back gate off and not allowing people to get through. Obviously, there's opportunities to still jump gates and things like that. If the board feels that we should move forward with the metal detectors, then my recommendation is we take 4 vacant positions we currently have in the district and increase Casa Grande's security guards from 9 to 12 and Vista's security guards from 9 to 10. Why 2 more at Union? It's a larger campus. It is a more of an external campus with doors to the outside, where Vista's campus is more of an internal campus, where most of the classroom doors, there are some external doors, but most of the doors open up into hallways and not to the outside. And so there's just a little bit more area to cover at Union, and that's why I would be recommending 12 for Union and 10 at Vista. So that's the survey results. Dr. Lineberry, Mr. Danzy, is there any information that you would like to share with our governing board as well?
I would just implore the board to do a little more looking into the logistics of metal detectors on campus. Like, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, Ms. Claridge, but when it comes to securing the campus with metal detectors, the logistics of that and getting students in when we have an issue with tardies and attendance already would probably up that a little bit. Mr. Lavender reported that it takes an hour to get 800 students through. 200 on his campus, 1,900 on my campus. That's a long time to get students in class and started. So we have to look at moving transportation back. We have to look at getting kids there earlier. We have to look at expediting parents. It's a lot more than just, hey, let's just throw these metal detectors up and go from there. This is something that we talked about at leadership. One of the things that I did mention, as far as Mr. Lavender was saying, if we're looking at something, I would suggest looking at, is it a vape problem, or are we looking at an issue that parents, students, staff are worried about guns coming on campus? If it's a vape problem, let's get some very expensive vape detectors in and see if that curtails the problem which we're talking about, as opposed to setting this up. And this is, I feel, something that we can look at down the line.
The only thing that I would add to that is that if it is educationally sound, it has to be administratively possible. And I worry about the logistics of how we're going to get all of our students through those metal detectors and get them on time. I'm kind of new, so my historical knowledge of the way that it works is a bit shallow. But I'm worried about the logistics of it more than anything else.
So this is a discussion item. If board members have questions and how they would like to and the discussion and things that they would like to bring up, certainly at this time. And you have the principals here as well. We do have a quote for 11 metal detectors. It would be 5 for Union, 5 for Vista, and then 1 for Pace here. Cost would be about $43,000 for the 11 metal detectors. These are the ones that charge up at night. You roll them out and they run on a battery during the day. Mr. Danzy's right. You can run about 800 through the metal detector an hour once you get into the motion of doing things. So obviously, we also looked at weapon detection systems, which are much more efficient because they're only detecting weapons, or you can turn them up to detect vapes, but there doesn't require the wanding and things like that. And kids can come, you don't have to take the backpacks, the cell phone, and some of those metal items off, but those are $30,000 a unit per year to lease them. And plus you have to have electricity out to them to run and for the electricity as well as the technology. So for the same cost of buying 11 to lease them per year, the same 11 per year, as you can imagine, the cost would be almost $500,000 per year. And then multiply that out by 4 years, you're well over $1 million. And so just kind of asking for questions and then input for where to go from here.
So I find it interesting that the perception of the parents versus the staff is different on the two campuses. I almost feel like there's such an uproar of the social aspect of things towards Union that parents ultimately think, oh my God, my child is not as safe at Union. Whereas you look at the staff and they're like, I'm on campus, I'm here. From the numbers, it seems like they are less concerned. I mean, they're still concerned, don't get me wrong, but I do find that very interesting that the numbers are so flipped between parents and staff that I think, it's beneficial to take a lot of the staff's input on what they feel maybe the solution is. I mean, obviously something needs to be done. Is this the solution? I don't know.
Go ahead.
From a logistics standpoint, yeah, I've got challenges with an hour for getting my kid up and ready for school. That's a problem. But from a public safety, from a student safety, I mean, that's what we're all here is making sure that we create a safe and supportive learning environment for all of our students. I do have a question is, for the weapon detector versus the number 1 per 2, 3, 4 metal detectors. I mean, what is the equation for the dollars? I understand the ongoing costs on the annual year, but again, these are children. So that's something we can take a look at. What would be the time, like what would one weapon detector equate to, 4, 5, 6? I mean, is that something that could just quickly go through?
I think, Mr. Wilkie, if we went with the weapon detection system, where we would have 2 in the front and 2 in the back of each of the high schools, you could go with 1 each because of the more rapid that students could go through.
And what do you think for the time frame? What would the 1 for 1? How many students can you process per one of these weapon detection systems?
The weapon detection system, the kids are rapidly walking through.
So it wouldn't necessarily be a delay.
They're not having to delay to take anything out of their pockets, and it's only going to alert if it detects a weapon, or you turn it up that day to detect the possibility of maybe vapes and things like that. Which hopefully, if we get the vape detector, and we don't have an idea what they're going to cost yet. Am I correct, Mr. Bellick? And we would have 50 bathrooms roughly. Yeah, and so it is much more efficient.
From a logistics standpoint, does that necessitate everybody going through one choke point, if you will? One entrance versus multiple entrances?
For Vista, if we're looking at it, it'll be 3 entryways. Well, actually 4. If we're looking at our ESS, our bus drop off, our parent drop off, and the front entrance that students come in throughout the day.
And how many from Union? Sorry. The new guy. Okay.
4 or 5.
Okay.
There's also the cost of this additional security personnel.
Well, we've already talked about adding the additional security.
I think if you went with the weapon detection system, you might not have to increase the security because you're not going to have the need to have as many people there wanting and things like that. You're probably having a few more at the stations. You can pull back a little bit.
Would there be an option to utilize one of those positions, the cost savings related to salaries and benefits, to offset the cost of additional weapons detection systems?
I didn't.
So instead of hiring those additional security personnel, would we be able to utilize some of those funds for the basically salary and benefits? What does that equate to? One or two of these potential weapon detection systems to help offset that cost to minimize it. So we get maybe those 4 for the price of those 2 or 3 additional security officers on campus.
My math serves me correctly. I don't think that security guards would be $250,000 per campus.
No, but
Like I don't have the number, so
no, this was more to Mr. Lavin. I'm not putting you on the spot there, but if the cost was $30,000 a year, so what would the security officer cost for salary and benefits could be exceeding 30,000, I would hope, in this. So.
I also think that it would be beneficial if we could talk to some of the other schools that have implemented this and see what the results have come about. Has it helped things? Has it made it more chaotic? Do they feel safer? There's a lot of aspects to it that I think we need to consider.
So there's one high school district that I'm aware of, Freya, that has purchased them.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Chuck.
For the regular metal detectors and for the leased ones, are we having the same amount of detectors, or am I hearing someone say because they can go faster, we can reduce the amount of detectors by the more expensive ones, or are we still going to have the same amount per whichever choice we choose?
The more expensive ones we could reduce and not purchase. No, obviously, we wouldn't be purchasing them; we would be leasing them.
How many would we? The more expensive ones, how many would we be required to have?
I would think probably 6. 6, maybe 7, depending on pace.
How many per campus?
3.
3 per campus?
Yeah.
And then we'd have one different one for pace, or we just do a wand thing for pace?
We could.
Okay.
With 125 kids, you're not going to have the rapid fire that you're going to have on the other 2 campuses.
Yeah. And so on the flip side, I believe one of Mr. Lineberry talked about the logistics. How long is it going to take us to put a logistics plan together to see how this is going to work and how much time we're going to have to back up our busing in order to meet our bill schedule? Do we have any idea to do that?
In talking to the consultants, they say on the metal detectors, it takes about 3 days of backups before they kind of get into a system and spreading it out. If there are 5 metal detectors on both high school campuses and they can run 800 through, then you're looking at about 4,000, and they have about 2,000 students. And so a lot just depends on what time students show up. As you know, buses tend to show up, and when you have a bus, you have 50 kids getting out of a bus at once when parents are dropping off and things like that. It's very similar. For example, when I go to a Cardinals game, if I go in through security an hour ahead of time, I go right through the security. If I wait to kickoff, I'm going to miss kickoff because the lines get pretty long at kickoff.
That's kind of what I'm asking. How far back? How much are we going to have to kick back our bus schedule in order to keep things running smoothly?
I think those are one of the things, Mr. Wright. We're probably going to at the beginning kick them back probably 15 minutes and then kind of adjust as we go along to see how it works.
Okay.
Because this is an experiment. We haven't, it's trial by fire, and kind of how we're doing it. And so,
I think I would like to see some kind of a plan from each school staff or a combination plan to see what that kind of schedule is going to be, so that we got a better idea of the logistics part. Scares me more than either one of the machines. I think the cheaper the machines, that we can go with those, as long as the logistics is not going to overwhelm it and get us all into a frustration mode.
Correct.
I know there's going to be a learning curve for the staff and everything to get things working but we still have to have that lead time on shoving 800 students through each machine at sporadic levels coming off the bus, because all the kids are going to want to get into school, and we're going to have staff members trying to slow them down and going through I'd like to see the staff give us a report as soon as possible on how they're going to do that.
What I wouldn't be able to give a timeline, because that would just be more than just the staff at the high schools. We also have Durham that would need to be in the room, and also Chartwells.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally, the lesser machines are gonna work fine for us if we can effectively solve that logistics problem as far as how we're gonna put the people through.
Okay. I think there's a number of things that we may be missing here. First of all, when we talk about the amount of machines that we're dealing with, whichever way we go, we're talking about 800 students an hour through each machine. You look at 2,000 students and you've got 3 or 4 machines, you're not talking about an hour's time. You're talking about far less than that. And I'm going to apologize before I say this, because it may be offensive and crude to some people, but I've got to ask this question. What is the value of a life of a student? And I think we need to look at it from that perspective. And I understand that these things are costly, but I also understand that we don't have the financial wherewithal to put officers on campus, because that's $250,000 per officer per year. Not only is that an issue, but it's also an issue to be able to hire somebody of that nature. We had the police chief come in not very long ago, and he was pretty blunt in telling us the problems that he was having. He needs 10 officers for Casa Grande right now. He's having a hard time finding that many officers, and to get 2 officers or 1 officer for each campus would be even more challenging. The other issue is that my feeling is that we look at this on a financial level, but we have to look at it more so as to protection of our kids. And I think that though we can't stop any or everything from happening, we can certainly tighten up a lot. And though some people don't like the idea of a metal detector, I think it opens up the door for just one more avenue of protection. So we have a choice of, if we add some security officers, what is going to be the value and what is going to be their ability to control the situation if we have a shooter. Now, we've been lucky here in Casa Grande. We have not had that happen yet, but don't hold your breath. I never want to see that, but I understand what the reality of life is. And we've already had one gun on campus, and I believe we were very fortunate that something didn't happen. So I think we need to, myself, I look at this from a completely different perspective, and I don't have a child in the school district, but it's critical to me that we protect these children and we do it in the most efficient manner and the manner that's going to give us the greatest results for the least cost.
All right. Anything I don't, anything that I might say or ask has already been brought up. So as I've said before, there's no need to repeat myself. So are there any further
Well,
questions?
I think the
or comments?
direction I've heard tonight is you want more of a comprehensive plan and some options and bring them back to you and then we'll go from there.
Yep.
What I thought I heard tonight.
Yep, I think that's where we're at.
I think we need to have it on both sides. I think we need to have a logistics side and a better cost breakdown on the total cost of the security agents to assist these machines, and the logistics of how much backup the buses are going to effectively get those kids through those detectives.
So we certainly can do that and visit some, if need be, if school's starting, visit some schools that have them and observe the operations as well. It's a difficult decision, and it's, I have mixed emotions in that. But as I was talking to some students out at CAC today, and I shared with them flying before 9/11 and flying after 9/11 and what a hassle it is to fly today. Yet I wouldn't fly today without going through that hassle. Or I wouldn't go to a Cardinals game today without going through those metal detectors, even though I hate to take my binoculars out and have them. It's intrusive, but at the same time. And so, but, we are addressing campus security. Dr. Lineberry and I have had some conversations already about numerous concerns about the campus security at Union. And then certainly addressing bathrooms and making sure our bathrooms are safe, closing that back gate off and making sure those are safe as well.
So we haven't,
just know,
we haven't in the past years, we have not batted an eye about in all three campuses and putting up glass shield walls in each of the school main entrances, and installing more fences around both campuses in order to better secure our campuses. This is just one more extension of the secure down mentality that it's been thrust upon us by general people's actions. We got to do it, because if we don't, like Mr. Hunt says, if we don't do it, the possibility of losing a life is unbearable.
Yes, sir.
I would like to also add to this issue, and that is you need to think about how you would react if we didn't have the metal detectors and we had a situation where we had a shooter and we had 5 or 6 or maybe more students that were killed and maybe a dozen or more wounded. I don't want to see this board come to a point of saying, I wish we would have, because that is too late. So we need to be proactive and not reactive. And unfortunately, in most cases, we've been reactive and not proactive.
Yep, I agree.
Dave, before we end this conversation, where are we at with the grant from Pinal County Sheriff's Office and getting the apps for the phones for all staff next year for the lockdowns, and then them accessing the cameras? Is that going to be up and operational on July 20th, sir? So we also have that as well next year as one of our strategies as well. If a teacher sees an unsafe situation, they can go to their phone, hit the app, It says, "Are you sure?" Yes. And then in the words of the consultant, that activates the cavalry, which is the Casa Grande Police Department, the county sheriff, and things like that. I will tell you, the last day of school at Valago, there was a student that made a comment about shooting up the school. He didn't have a weapon or anything like that. Within minutes, they had 6 Casa Grande police officers on that campus with dogs, checking and making sure that campus was secure. And so, although, as Mr. Hunt is absolutely right, the city is short 10 police officers right now. That's why they can't commit to an SRO as they're going through the transition. In the event of a situation, they respond very quickly. And so in those type of situations as well. So again, I will work, Dr. Lineberry, Mr. Danzy, and I have a meeting already tomorrow morning to talk about our student handbook, which will address the dress code and some of your other concerns. I couldn't agree with some of the things you said more, ma'am, in doing that. And so we will work, and we will find something that we can all support in making sure our students, our staff are all safe.
Can I just end with one final thing?
Yes, ma'am.
So to put it in a different perspective, as my mother reminded me a few months ago, I went to middle school in St. Louis, and we had metal detectors in our middle school. And I don't remember that. I mean, it was just, though they had them set up, we were just used to it. We went in, and I don't remember. She's like, "Don't you remember there were metal?" I was like, "Nope." It wasn't one of those things in my memory. I remembered my friends and going to school, but not walking through the metal detector every day. Which is, and I'm not saying I'm for or against, because I want more information, but I do want our kids to be safe. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item C. A move to approve the changing dates for a couple of board meetings. For the July board meeting, moving it to July 11th due to the 4th of July holiday the previous week. And then moving the October board meeting to September 26th due to fall break. Is there a motion to approve that? We got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Hunt. Any discussion? All right, Mary, call for the question.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
And Mrs. Barrington?
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Moving on to item D, curriculum adoption. Mr. Lavender, will you please address that?
So in your packet today, I added a document called "Why Do We Need New History Textbooks?" And so I wanted to review that a little bit. A mistake was made in the posting for the history curriculum, that it was a 90-day review period when law says 60 days. It wasn't caught until I was asked a couple questions yesterday. And so that 90 days, even though it's 60, started April 12th. But given the fact there were questions about this curriculum, and there are some procedural things that we're not going to do in the future, and you're already working on a reading in the future that textbook selection committees have to follow open meeting laws, we need time to take a breath and really look at those things. But I thought it was important that I share some key things with you. Mary, are you able to put it up on the screen? So one of the things that I think is critically important is the Arizona state standards for history have changed over the last 15 years. And they have changed to a more hands-on approach to history and less memorization of facts. Our history books are very outdated. Our history books do not have Barack Obama, President Obama in them, President Trump. They are very outdated in recent history and some of the things that are going on. Plus, they are written more from a factual memorization of history standpoint, not to what I would call more. And I've provided for you what our state standards call, which is our history core discipline descriptors, that history standards promote both historical context and historical thinking to prepare students to apply historical thinking to any historical area and context. The study of history is vital because it promotes the development of analytical skills, comparative perspectives, and question and answers modes of critical judgment that promote thoughtful work in any field or career. It's vital for students to study both the United States and world history so they can analyze the human experience through time, recognize the relationship events and people, and interpret significant patterns, themes, ideas, and turning points in history and world history. Students apply the lessons of history through the lives of citizens of the United States and members of our world community. So it's really taking history, understanding it, looking at different perspectives, and then how can we move forward? Our history book currently that we're using is not written that way. And so it's difficult to hit those standards with our current history book. And plus they're outdated, they're graffitied up and other things, and they don't have some of the interactive things. I know there are concerns in when you start talking about thinking in history and the concern about indoctrinating students and things like that. And so AR 15-717, which was passed in 2021, clearly addresses the indoctrination of students in teaching things. For example, it says the law states that a teacher administrator shall not use public monies for instruction that presents any form of blame or judgment on the basis of race, ethnicity, or sex, or allow instruction based on the following 7 concepts. One race, one ethnic group, or one sex is inherently morally or intellectually superior to another race, ethnic group, or sex. I don't want to read through all 7 because you have them in front of you, but they're all there. But it clearly states that history has to be taught from an objective standpoint and not pitting sides against each other. And then there are severe ramifications if school districts and teachers do not follow that. The law allows for the county attorney or the attorney general to initiate a lawsuit against the school or district or charter school that's proven to violate this law. Additionally, attorneys acting on behalf of the public may request a legal opinion of the county attorney or the attorney general as whether a proposed use of school district resource would violate the law. So clearly, our legislature understands that history is being taught from a new context, but it also understands that latitude in having conversations could create teachers that could be biased. And so it addresses that. So what happened with our textbook is we went through and we asked for 5 textbook companies to submit proposals. We just can't go around the country and start handpicking textbook companies. These textbook companies have to be approved by the Arizona Department of Education. And so they have to go through that rigorous process through them before they ever appear on our list. So we asked 5 companies to submit. This was done back in probably September or October, and the committee worked. And in November, they looked at these facts. There were 3 textbook companies that submitted. One was Nat Geo, which was found to be very expensive and seemed to be a picture book guiding the reader through history. The other was McGraw-Hill, an outline version of textbooks that has been what we've been using since high school, so more of the factual memorization stuff with a lot of worksheets. And then the Savas was an online interactive book. One of the biggest struggles now is getting the students to be engaged in their work. The selection committee was hoping that the interactivity of the programs would cause students to actually do their work. This is why they chose Savas over the other 2 programs. The entire goal here was to pick something that students would actually want to use, are willing to engage in. And so that's why the recommendation was made in November to bring that forward. Well, that recommendation was supposed to come forward in the beginning of the new year. Well, the new year is when we had some administrative changes and those things were pulled back. Mrs. Morales has pushed hard on behalf of the teachers. We need some kind of curriculum and to be able to do the things we're asking for. And so it was put back on for review in April for the 60-day review. Unfortunately, it was put for 90 days. And so we need to push that out to July. So what are the things if we do not adopt the textbook? Number one, it's very difficult for our teachers to teach the standards without the resources to support them. Number 2, teachers will continue to use resources that are not approved or vetted. The Savas has been vetted by our curriculum committee. It's been vetted by our state of Arizona, and it is actually an active curriculum in other states as well. And is similar to the textbook that has been adopted. So not having anything forces our teachers to go out and start finding materials to try to promote some of this. These materials have been not vetted. And so these aren't approved materials because they're not supplemental materials as well. And then 3, more than likely, we will continue to have history classes that do not promote historical context and historical thinking. Our students deserve a quality educational experience to prepare them to be a productive thinking adults. Some other things to consider. Number 1, in looking at the textbook, World War II, which I would argue as a history teacher is the most significant event over the last 100 years historically, is only taught in 63 pages. And so there's not a lot of information in the textbook on World War II, but there's a lot of interactive maps and things like that to help kids understand World War II, to be able to compare how we handled the 14 points from the lessons learned after World War I to World War II and moving forward. There is no way that I, as a history teacher, or any of our history teachers could cover all 1,100 of those pages. Our history teachers are not going to read those pages from front, our teachers are not going to read those pages from front to cover. Because those 63 pages for World War II, I would think would take 4 to 5 weeks to teach and thoroughly teach so our kids understand the historical significance of World War II and how it shaped our relationship today with other countries and really brought the United States into what we would call the superpower status. Number 2, there are many historical assumptions and statements that there will not be 100% agreement on if the statements are in fact true. For example, the book states that Elvis Presley died in 1977 and he was flamboyant. My dad described him as obnoxious and disrespectful. I found over 63 pages on the internet today promoting the belief that Elvis is still alive today. I know I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but I didn't want to touch on any of the sensitive materials in that book where there's clearly, we could come down with 2 sides of what happened to those events. But that's one of the challenges that we face historically is we all bring our own perspectives to what happened. We all bring our own biases to what happened. And what we really want kids to do is be able to look at information, to study information, and form their own conclusions. We want kids to be able to think. That's how all of us determined our own thinking about things and the things we did there. There are inaccuracies in that book. I've seen them. And so I don't think we're going to find a book that doesn't have those inaccuracies moving forward. And number 3, who will determine a suitable textbook and how long will it take? And so we have school starting on July 20th. If we come back on July 13th with the SAVIS as the recommendation, if we don't do it at that time, then we have put our teachers out for another year of not having content to be able to drive them forward. We can do a 1-year contract with SAVIS, which was $26,000, or we can do a 3-year contract with them that is $59,000. So obviously there's an incentive to go a longer term with them. Not only do we have the history challenge with that, we also have government textbooks that are out of date, world history textbooks that are out of date, economics too, right?
We're hoping to do the entire social studies curriculum, but the enormity and the cost is why we were driven to have to choose a specific content.
Yeah. Now, as far as the adoption, obviously moving forward as the state law is going through, we had the first reading tonight, all of our future curriculum adoption committees will have to meet the open meeting laws, which means meetings will be posted, the meeting notes and things like that. In analyzing how we did curriculum adoption when I was in the elementary district, which I wasn't involved in, but as a principal, I obviously knew what was going on. One thing we got backwards a little bit here, this is my responsibility, I was in charge in March, is we should have brought this to you in March and said, hey, we're looking at a curriculum adoption, we're recommending SAVIS, this is why we're recommending it, and we're asking you to understand that we want to do a 60-day review and not push people to really look through these materials very quickly and try to make quick judgments. But at the same time, I want to give the time this next month for people to review the materials and make a good decision on what's educationally best for our students, understanding the challenges that are out there with textbooks and things like that. I'm open for any questions the board may have.
Was the prior books that we have, were those approved by the state at the time that they were instituted into the school?
I would assume, Mr. Hunt, we're going probably all the way back into the 1990s, which seemed like a long time ago. But as far as I can remember, we've always had to go to the state and the state approved curriculums that we just can't, because we're accepting state money and federal money, then there are curriculums that we have to adopt. And Renee, help me out on that one, because you've got a little bit more experience in this. Am I answering that question correctly?
So anytime that we, so anytime that we approve a curriculum, it has to be vetted. And yes, the publishers do have to go through a process through the state. And just like Savas, they're also a conglomerate with Pearson. So the books that we have now, whenever we did approve them, and I would have to historically go through and find out who they were from and where they would have had to have gone through the same process that the state sets forward. They would have had to have been vetted. They would have had to go before the board. They would have had to have been approved.
Do you know how many people have been approved in relationship to, we looked at 5. My understanding was we actually looked at 3, but that was the only ones that answered. How many are on that approved list now? Do you know?
Can you explain more what you're asking? Explain what you're,
On the approved list for
like the entirety of the list?
well, for an example, we're dealing with history right now.
Mhm.
So is there 24 companies that are on the approved list, or is there just 5 or 6? How many are on that approved list?
So when we went to look at how are we going to adopt a new curriculum, what the department was looking at was which companies out of the list, and I cannot give you an exact number because I don't have it in front of me and I don't want to misquote it. I don't want to give you a number of 12 and then there's 20 and then I've given you the wrong number. But what they did do is they looked at it and said, okay, of the groups that are on here, and like I said, Savas is Pearson, McGraw-Hill, they also are in cooperation with other companies. Which of these have the most current and updated versions of their curriculum? Because if we're going to adopt a new curriculum, we don't want to adopt one that's 5 years old, right? Because that's silly. We want to adopt one that's the most current. So what they did is they found the top 5 that have the most current information, and they put out calls. They got calls back from the 3, the McGraw-Hill, the Savas, the Nat Geo. And at that point, they sat down with their department heads, they sat down with our subject matter experts, and they began to do the dive. And it was not just on American history, it was on the entirety of the social studies curriculum. And when they looked at the entirety of the social studies curriculum, they said, okay, we as a group, from AP economics and AP government to world history, have to agree that this is the company we're going to go with. And so because it was interactive and because we are moving away from textbooks, because it is wasting money for us to have to buy textbooks over and over and over and over again when we are going online. Kids destroy them. That's not useful for us to throw our money into that. This was how we were moving. They found that it was the most interactive. It had the most supplemental materials. It had materials where you and I had that discussion about diversity, right? And diversity meaning the diverse ability to teach to our high level learners, also our low level learners, our English level learners. It had all of those materials within it. This was what we wanted. It got approved on our level in November. Okay, we're going to put this before the board. And then in January, when we had the events that we had, we just could not rationalize the amount of money it was going to take us to put out that entire curriculum. So we were asked to choose one. And we said, well, where are we the most in need? And the department made the decision. I did not. The department made the decision. American history is where we have to start. And that's how we landed where we are.
Okay, my next question would be, I know that there are school districts in Arizona that have adopted this program. Have you had conversations with them and what their experience has been and where they're at?
So I personally have not. Our goal is not to teach children what to think. Our goal is to teach critical thinkers. But I can have conversations, and I would like to know what you'd like me to ask them. So maybe you and I can have a conversation of what your interests are and asking them what their experience is so that I can get better answers for you.
I think just general experience, and I'm not unwilling to sit down and talk with you about that. That would be great. But I think generally speaking, I know that in history, there's always two sides of history and many opinions of history. So what I'm more interested in is in presenting history is that we present both ends of history, both sides of history, what two different groups may think about the history. I went through the book, not to a great degree, but I have gone through the book, and I have found a number of things in there that gave me great concern.
Sure.
And I think that I think we have to be cautious because what a kid sees is going to be what a kid learns, and they're never going to be able to unsee that. And it's just like the reference that you made to Elvis Presley. And we all know as adults that Elvis is not alive. But on the same token, there are kids out there that will see that, they will believe it, and that will be gospel to them. And that's not really what I think we want to be teaching our kids is something similar to Elvis is still alive. We want to teach them number one, what the truth is, and we want them to be critical thinkers. And I don't believe they can do that unless we present both sides of the equation to them. That's how you become a critical thinker.
So this was a discussion that we had with Nathan Sheeler, and I believe you also were able to talk with him at length about this. And
I did.
And we said, okay, how exactly are we going to use these materials, and how exactly are we going to maneuver through these materials? And as we had talked earlier, it is really the district's curriculum and how we set forth the curriculum map, which Micaiah Haskin has worked very tirelessly on to make sure that we have that curriculum map in alignment with our state. And then once we have that curriculum map, we release through the materials the alignment through that, so they do not have access to what we don't want them to have access to. And so those pieces that we're not teaching, the children aren't diving into those things. And so that is where I'm understanding how we are not presenting those ambiguous ideas that can be dangerous.
When I talked to Nathan today, I had asked the specific question in relationship to, is that possible by doing pieces of that particular subject, or do you have to do the entire subject? In other words, with this example of Elvis is alive, can we remove that from the children being able to see it? Or do we have to remove the entire subject of Elvis Presley or the chapter in order to eliminate that as a possibility?
So as I understand it, if we're using Elvis as an example, we would say Elvis is a figure in history that rose to fame and possibly was a part of pop culture, and then we move on. And then we don't necessarily dive into the opinions of who he was and how people thought he did certain things, like whatever. And so that's my understanding of how we can shape and align with our curriculum map.
The reason I ask that question is because there are a number of areas where there are certain discrepancies that are pretty evident in relationship to those that know history and those that know current events. And my concerns is if we can't delete just that portion of the information that is historically wrong, then we open up the door for the kids to be able to draw an opinion that may be based on false information. And I'm concerned about that. I'm worried about that.
And in our conversation, I heard that loud and clear. And you and I had those definition conversations where we were defining the concerns and where they really were. And I appreciate you giving us that time. And it comes down to that point number 3. We're never going to have that perfect book where who is the decider of what history was, right? So we have to give children the ability to be critical thinkers and then align them with that standard. And I think that that's at some point, I guess as your director of curriculum and as your director of learning, my concern is if I don't give them something to present and to guide the children with, they're going to go find something else. And I would rather give them something that we know we have to kind of say, okay, this is what we're doing, rather than surfing a web and finding the 63 pages where Elvis is alive. You know, I mean, I'm more concerned about that.
And I don't disagree with that concern, and I would have some of those same concerns. But the unfortunate part about this is that we're up against a deadline. And the unfortunate part about it is if we would have had from November to have been looking at this and considering this and giving directions, and we would have had the curriculum set in relationship to what is going to be taught and what won't be taught out of this particular set of curriculum, it would give us the time that we really need to, as a board, make an informed decision. When we have to make a decision in a quick period of time, 30 days for a decision this critical, I think is very short-lived. And I understand why this happened, and I understand the problems that are surrounding, but I also understand it's a reactive situation and not a proactive. And I am a stickler on being proactive about these things so that we have more than enough time, adequate time to be able to look at these things, read them, and test them to find out whether they're going to be beneficial to our students. It's just like making the phone call to the districts that actually have this, whether they be in Arizona or whether they be outside Arizona. I think it would be critical to get input. And I don't believe that I heard anybody say that we've done that yet. And these are schools and districts that have used this product, and it may be the best thing that there is, but they may have some insight that would steer us away from maybe some of the challenges and problems that they went through.
Understood.
And if I can just chime in here, I totally agree. It's getting that track record, checking up on their track record. Because one of the things that I'd be interested in knowing is like, I have a high schooler, and I'm all for innovation and trying to do things, new ways, approaches to trying to get our high schoolers, our teenagers more engaged with their education because they need it. My student, my boy is awesome, but he does have some challenges sometimes of keeping that focus. And so in engaging, this is talking about engaging them. So I'd be very interested in hearing about the track record related to how engaging the students, we saw an uptick because the students were more engaged. I'd love to see some more information on that. Getting back to the previous, it's history undergrad myself. Listen, history is this big, right? It's beyond this big. And so we're not going to be able to cover everything in a year. You're just not going to. High school is to introduce the basic facts. World history, World War II, kind of important for everything going forward, right? So there is going to be not enough time to cover every element, every aspect of history. So to your point is we take a look at those. It's not about, we introduce a topic, start thinking about that, but we're not going to have time to cover that. That's with community college. That's with your own. We want them to actually go and look for more information, hopefully in the right areas, and we kind of guide them that way. But giving that spark of being inquisitive and saying, you know what, I want to learn more about that.
Right.
So for me, Savis, I agree with you. It's like a little bit more time, difficult challenges and all this. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the benefits and the advantages that other school districts have experienced with this. But I am excited about the possibility of this new innovative, engaging curriculum.
And so what I'm hearing is I need to do a little digging on previous other districts that have previous experience and some of the interactive successes. And so that will be my challenge after this meeting, to go forth and find out that information.
If you could also get Mr. Hunt the list of all of the high school history curriculums that are approved by the state. I know we reached out to 5. Was there only 5 on the list, or were there more than 5?
I can do
And
that.
provide that list as well.
Please understand that I am not against innovation. I am all for it. And I think using the computer and using the internet and the sources that we have there has an extreme advantage for our students. So I'm very much for making changes that are going to improve the learning capability of our kids. I think that that's a wise choice, but I just want to make sure that the choice that we make now is going to be not only the right choice, but I want to make sure that that choice 3 years down the road, we can say that was the best choice.
Right. Okay. So are we good going forward with what I need to get for you guys?
Yeah.
It was just a generally speaking question. There was a little bit of a conversation regarding how, content providers make that list, and that's a state level issue,
That's my
correct?
understanding.
So
They have to be vetted through the state. They
okay.
have to apply, and then the state has
So
to.
if there, so
vet
if
them.
there's concerns there in terms of the content that those providers produce, then it would be the state superintendent of public instruction, Tom Horn's office, would be the place to go to address those.
Yes,
Correct.
sir.
All right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
And I would say there's 2 resources you can go to. One would be the state superintendent, but the other, the law clearly says that you can reach out to the county attorney, and the county attorney can give you a legal opinion on whether or not it's appropriate to teach that Elvis Presley's and explore that Elvis
Right.
Presley's alive
But-
or not alive.
Right. But as far as the process of how they get on there, it would be
So yes, and so you're absolutely right. Also, those committees at the state are normally, they send out and then ask social studies teachers or math teachers. There never seems to be the issues adopting, because not only are we delaying social studies tonight, but we also had Spanish. We had a reading intervention. I think there was one more tonight as well. That we're just going to do all of them in December. We're not even discussing those curriculums right now, but typically, and we know history is an area that's a political hot potato nut right now. But yeah, it is educators that are a part of that process. And then I believe the State Board of Education approves the recommendations, which Superintendent Horn is a member of the State Board of Education.
okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Just want to make sure, especially for our fans at home tonight, that Elvis Presley is not one of our state standards. But I thought using an example that not me, where we might not draw some lines, might help us understand that there are some inaccuracies in this textbook. But this textbook clearly says that he died in 1977. It does not talk about him being alive. One of the things I was surprised today, though, was that it really doesn't mention the assassination of John Kennedy, which I had an entire class in college about the assassination of John Kennedy. Yes.
Jeff, I am very happy that you cleared that up, because I really believed that he was still alive.
See, there you go.
Mr. Hunt, I used to believe that Elvis was alive until I visited Graceland, and somebody told me that you could see Graceland for free because he's buried there and it's a cemetery. So they had to open it up for a half an hour every day. And so after spending $100 taking my wife on this tour of this ugly house with on the ceiling, we just walked up the next day and sat by the grave, and there was one lady that goes there every single day and puts graves at Elvis's grave and stuff. And so it was quite an educational trip to go to. But until I was there, I did not believe that Elvis was alive. Or he was dead.
Dead.
But I do believe in the single bullet theory.
All right. Okay. So it's on the agenda as a motion, but do we have to?
There's no action to take tonight.
Okay.
What I just wanted to do is give more of an overview of what we're going to do. So then Ms. Morales has her action list going forward. And again, we will do things differently in moving forward and bringing these things to you and giving you more opportunity. And I heard tonight, you want more than 60 days to review some of these materials as well. And so moving forward, we will be much earlier in the year and much more transparent. And that just falls on me and my responsibilities. And I apologize to all of you that we weren't ready tonight to make a decision.
All right, thank you. All right, so then at this point, then we will move on to item E, which is the 23-24 food service contract renewal amendment. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any questions, comments, concerns on that?
No.
All right, hearing none. Mary, will you please call for the question?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
And Ms. Harrington?
Yes.
All right, moving on to item F, the athletic training services. There's a need for a motion to approve to award RFP 82-2-3-23 for athletic trainer services at Direct Sports Medicines for the 23-24 school year as presented.
I move.
All right, we have a motion and a second, or a motion. We need we got a second. I got ahead of myself there. Sorry. All right, any questions or discussion on that item? All right, hearing none. Mary, will you please call for the question?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
Ms. Harrington?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Item G, donations. There's a need for board approval for the following donation, which is a $2,500 scholarship from Lucid to the PACE program. Is there a motion to approve acceptance of that donation?
I will make that motion.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and second, any conversation or questions on that?
I'd just like to say I'm certainly happy that we have somebody stepping up out of the business world and making a donation. This tells me that at least Lucid has a commitment to seeing this happen, and that makes me very happy.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Any further comment? Hearing none, then Mary, will you please call for the question?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that is all for the matters reserved for board action. So we're now moving on to item number 7, which is the consent agenda.
Motion we approve items A through G in entirety.
Second.
All right, there's a motion from Mr. Wright, a second from Ms. Harrington. Any questions on any of those items? Hearing none, Mary, will you please call for the question?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie?
Yes.
And Mrs. Harrington?
Yes.
Well, motion passes. And now Mr. Lavender, you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for all the board's efforts and hard work to get through tonight. We dealt with some difficult things. We will be working with our high school administration, bringing back a plan for all of you to consider. We will also be working hard to provide the information that you need there. We have some individuals that are in the pipeline that have been recommended. We were not able to get on the consent agenda tonight because we're still waiting for some background checks. We also will be working with our new HR director to provide you more information and background on some of the employees. We were really scrambling to get things ready for this meeting, but in the future, I know that I've had some board members tell me that they would like a little bit more information on who we're recommending. So we will be putting a process of that together. That being said, I may be asking for a quick telephonic meeting sometime next week to approve some more employment. So number one, we can work out contracts with them, and number two, if they're leaving another district of employment, that they can go ahead and submit their letters of resignation there. Also, the tour, all of you are set for a Monday, July 26th at Lucid. Mrs. Beecham will be your tour guide along with Mr. Cruz. And then the education director out there, I think her name is Jennifer, if my memory serves me correctly. Unfortunately, we're taking our dog on vacation, and so we will be out of town that day. But I'll certainly be thinking about you as the dog and I are hiking the beach there in Oregon and playing golf. So,
Or is it the dog that's taking you on vacation?
I know she's the one that picked the location this year. So, but I'm really looking forward to all of you doing the tour of Lucid and seeing a state-of-the-art manufacturer and how manufacturing is being done today. I think it'll help put some of the things we're doing in pace to how we're matching that. I know Mr. Wilkie is very familiar with Lucid, and I think you said you're going to be able to make it. Am I correct, sir, on the 26th?
I believe so, yes.
So he will also be a wonderful resource as well. And while you're there, ask for things. When I was there a couple weeks ago, I asked for them to do a quarterly Lucid Performance Educator Award, polo shirts with Lucid Performance Educator and stuff like that. But ask them if they would like to donate $1 million to get turf fields for our football stadium. Obviously, that would be a pipe dream, but I'm sure, and continuing the sport, but they want to be a wonderful partner with us, and give Mr. Cruz a hard time as well.
Definitely.
Two quick questions for you. Number one, on Lucid, do you think they'd be willing to donate a car? And number two, where are we at with our teachers? Yes.
Mr. Hunt, this is not an agenda item. We can't not discuss this kind of stuff.
Okay, sorry, I did not realize that.
Yep.
All right. And anything else then?
No, sir.
All right. Well, at this case, then we can move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
All right. Motion, and there's a second. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.